The Amazon basin is one of the richest and most awe-inspiring terrestrial ecosystems our planet has to offer. It spans around 7 million square kilometers, 6 million of which are covered in dense tropical rainforest. From the tiniest insects to some of the largest cats, snakes, and crocodilians, there are tens of thousands of animal species to be found here, many of which are yet to be discovered, and it represents one of the best curated museums of life around today. But this diversity isn't new, even if the rainforest is. And if we go back in time, even to millions of years before the Amazon rainforest existed, we'd be standing in a prehistoric wetland known as the Pebos system. And in this Miocene swamp, millions of years before humans evolved, the continent was home to some of the largest and most fearsome creatures since the dinosaurs. In this video, we're going to span multiple tiers of life, from the aquatic to the aerial, and we'll touch on some of the most tremendous reasons why the prehistoric Amazon was such a dangerous place. And stick around because we'll finish up with why it would suddenly vanish. The Amazon basin is commonly referred to as the lungs of the planet. A fifth of the oxygen produced by photosynthesis on land comes from this region, and perhaps more importantly, along with the other forests of the world, it removes the equivalent of 1.5 times the US's CO2 emissions each year. This essential filtration system of the very air we breathe is exactly why lots of people are trying to loudly explain to rich folks why cutting it all down and burning it is like setting fire to your sofa while you're still sitting on it. But that's a topic for another video. But go back just a few millions of years, and the ancient Amazon was comprised of vast lakes, wetlands, and rivers rather than the dense tree cover that we see there today. And these waterways were dominated by giants. Even without the forest, the Pebos wetlands were a prime habitat for incredible life. This hotspot was teeming with massive reptiles, giant fish, weird snakes, and even more remarkably intimidating birds. If the Amazon rainforest is the lungs of the planet now, the Pebos system was more like the heartbeat, pulsing with cycles of water, rising and falling and fueling species as fierce and fascinating as any in the world today. The Pebos system sprawled across both the Amazon and Orinoco basins. It spanned a temporal range through much of the Miocene, which lasted between around 23 and 5 million years ago. Its interconnected network of lakes, swamps, and slow-moving rivers was dynamic and ever-changing. Sometimes it would be a shallow lake, other times a deep ocean waterway, or a seasonally flooded forest. This range of habitats supported incredible diversity, allowing us to draw parallels with the forest that covers the land there today. And many of the animals that roamed the Pebos were the ancestors of contemporary community members found there now. And if we begin in the water, we immediately touch on one of the most fearsome animals that South America has ever had the privilege of hosting. Today, the aquatic niches in the Amazon are dominated by animals like the black caiman. This 4-meter, 450-kilogram crocodilian patrols the algae-covered waters of the slow-moving Amazon, skulking around quietly and lying in ambush. Its snack of choice is commonly one of the many species of turtles found all over the continent. But roll back the clock and this monster reptile would have had an even more monstrous equivalent. The Pebos system had a plethora of crocodilian species and an extremely diverse community of killers, but the largest and best known of these was Purosaurus. This beast is known mainly from skull fossils, but it's estimated to have reached over 12 meters in length, some estimates suggesting even up to 16 meters, and its skull bones suggest a bite force of 3 times that of the saltwater crocodile. It weighed in at around 12 tons. This was one of the largest crocodilians ever discovered, rivaling the Cretaceous Deinosuchus and certainly dominating the waters much closer to our time. This was a caiman, for sure, but 3 times or more the size of the largest of their kind around today. This animal could have dragged anything on land well into the water, and once it closed its mouth, crushing and gripping with conical teeth, it could hold a struggling victim until that struggle ceased. And the teeth were well designed for grabbing large vertebrates. Each one was thick, 5 centimeters long, and curved towards the mouth. So once it got hold of you, there would have been no escape. So the water's edge was a nightmare already, but even the deeper waterways were a death trap. If you were able to enter a calm-looking lake and bypass the gauntlet of predatory caimans watching from the shallows, you'd still have to face the piranhas. Piranhas are some of the most notorious of Amazonian predators even today, but in the Miocene they were almost unthinkable. Megapiranha paranensis, a serrasalmid fish from the late Miocene, was substantially larger than any of its modern counterparts. and it has a reputation even grander. This fish was over a meter in length, and like its modern relatives, packed a set of powerful cutting teeth. In fact, its bite force estimates put it at the strongest relative bite force of any fish, modern or prehistoric. That's more than the great white, more than Dunkleosteus, and even more than the T-Rex. To be clear, T-Rex had a bite force of around 3 times that of Megapiranha, but it was over 100 times heavier. And for a direct comparison, Megapiranha may have had the exact same bite force as a 3-ton great white shark. But there's more. The teeth of this fish were different from modern-day piranhas. Unlike the single row of wide cutting teeth in the modern fish, Megapiranha had its chompers arranged in a zigzag formation. They had sharp, flesh-cutting edges too, of course, but the arrangement of the teeth would have been suitable also for crushing, making it a more generalist predator that could slice or crush depending on which part of your body you decide to present it with. Using bronze analogues, some researchers claim that the force from the bite of a Megapiranha was enough to crush the femur of a cow. So all in all, best to stay on land during prehistoric Amazon. Maybe. The terrestrial tier during Miocene South America would have been dominated by the forest rakids. You might know these better by their nickname, the terror birds, and it's highly likely that they would well have lived up to this name. The largest terror bird known was around 3 meters tall, and these would have spanned the late Miocene and into the early Pleistocene. They could have been 300 kilograms or more in weight, and they brought with them all the ferocity of their theropod line, with none of the limiting factors that their cousins were facing on other continents from the heavier carnivorans, because they hadn't made it onto South America yet. And there were smaller predators too that were still well worth worrying over. Sparassodonts were some of the largest giant marsupial predators, and dominated pretty much every terrestrial carnivore niche below the terror birds. They ranged from the mustelid-sized to the jaguar-sized, and perhaps even bigger, and some came with the experimental saber teeth that would prove so effective in the northern continent during the Pleistocene. Thalassophobe was just such a beast, weighing a potential 150 kilograms, and representing a long-forgotten mammalian archetype in the lingering marsupial predatory line of the isolated South American continent. So the land was no walk in the park either. Perhaps you could retreat to the trees for safety. But as we mentioned, the prehistoric Amazon didn't have trees to the extent that it does today. Still, though, there would have been forests to hide in. The early relatives of boas and anacondas would have contributed to the dangers in the water, but perhaps they would have also followed you up into the canopy. So far, Miocene snake fossils from this part of the world are sparse, but there are some primitive genera to consider. Columbophis would have been about 2 meters long and a powerful constrictor like the modern boa. Not too much to worry about, perhaps, and it's more likely you'd have to be careful around these spiders and centipedes instead. Today, South America is home to various Scolopendra species, the largest of which, and the largest centipede in the world, Scolopendra gigantea, can and has killed people with its venomous sting. In the absence of evidence, speculation abounds about how big something like this could have been in the Pebus system of the Miocene, but there's no need at all to speculate about the potential for death from above, since we have plenty of evidence for monsters in the air. In the skies over modern-day Argentina, there would have been an animal whose wings could have blocked out the sun. Argentavis magnificens was one of the largest flying birds there ever was, and with a wingspan of over 7 meters and up to 80 kilograms in mass, this beast had a lot of power behind it. This bird dwarfed modern condors, let alone eagles, and it could have soared indefinitely on its immense wings, scouting around the treetops for a hairless ape in the wrong timeline, cowering amid the branches of the patchy woodland. With so much danger on the ground, it was likely an opportunistic hunter and scavenger, perhaps even stealing kills from smaller animals and trying to stay out of the way of the terror birds. Despite being so heavy, it was light for its size, but it would have brought with it a powerful hooked beak for ripping into flesh. And with this aerial dominance, the range of biomes within the Pebus system from aquatic to aerial were saturated with apex predators. There simply wouldn't have been anywhere to hide. But, as we can tell from looking at it, something happened to change this balance. Something that would one day create the largest rainforest on the planet. And, as promised, we're about to go into that. But before we do, here's a quick thank you for watching and a polite nudge in the direction of the like button, which, if you've had fun, you can click to support the channel. And as always, if you haven't already, please subscribe to catch the next videos and leave your suggestions in the comments. South America split off from its supercontinent Gondwana to become this exquisite refuge of many of the most primitive and unusual animals we'll ever know about. And for a long time, all of its fresh water drained westward into the Pacific. Back then, there was an immense river just like the Amazon, but flowing in the opposite direction, draining the very same waters that the Amazon drains today. Today, the Amazon River is responsible for draining around a fifth of the entire planet's fresh water into the ocean. But if we go back well into the past, the warmer periods of the time would have involved even more fresh water than that. But when the Andes began to rise in the west, they created a tremendous blockage. So the Pebas mega wetland owed its lengthy existence to the rising Andes Mountains, which initially blocked drainage into the Pacific Ocean, essentially damming up the riverine systems and creating that vast interconnected network of lakes and swamps that we find in the Miocene Amazon basin. But the Andes continued to rise through the late Miocene and ended up gradually reversing the flow of water eastward towards the Atlantic. This process drained and fragmented the Pebas wetlands, replacing them with the river system that would eventually become the modern Amazon. And as these conditions transformed, the large specialists such as Purosaurus and Argentavis lost the stable habitats they depended on. Perhaps their long generation times and slow reproductive strategies left them unable to adapt quickly to the new landscapes, and by contrast, the smaller species with rapid life cycles would have adjusted more readily, evolving to exploit the emerging riverine and forest environments. But the disappearance of the Pebas giants did not erase their impact. Many lineages that survived contributed to the foundation of modern Amazonian diversity, showing us just how extinction and adaptation together shaped one of the world's richest ecosystems. And so today, the Amazon basin is a direct product of this transition, combined with the influx of North American fauna during the Great Biotic Interchange, when the isolated South American continent finally made contact with its partner in the north. And due to these slow geological and biological shifts, the heart of the planet developed into the very lungs with which we clean our air today. And among them we find many of the most spectacular plants and animals we'll ever be privileged to share our planet with. And that's all for this video. Thanks again for watching, and hopefully we'll see you for the next one.